Yeah, it's been that long. Even though this episode of History of Dragon Ball Figuarts is all about 2022, it's 2024, and us Figuart fans, well, we've been out here since 2011. Take that in. Real quick, this is episode in the series. A lot of y'all been telling me how much you love it. So if that's the case and y'all want to keep seeing these, please drop a dang like. It's free, and I promise I won't do you like YouTube and hit you with an algorithm and subscription fee at some point. Anyways, History of Dragon Ball Figuarts, episode 5. Run it. Hey guys, if you're brand new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and definitely ring-a-ding-ding that bell notification button. It helps the channel grow and it helps me bring you guys a lot more. So safe to say, as of 2022, we've got more releases than we ever thought we would have by now in the line. And thanks to the consumerism spike in the line, we also have a lot of variants that make up those releases as well. Now just a reminder for this video, we're going off the North American availability of these figures for the release dates and not the announced ones. But as you will soon see, 2022 brought with it the question of whether or not it's been the most mediocre year for releases considering the amount of releases it had. Because barring web and event exclusives, the main line really did not offer too many figures to start, and not many of those figures stand up here in 2024 as some of the best in the line. Again, those are the mainline figures, not the web or event exclusives. So getting things started, we got the return of the androids in the Dragon Ball Super Tournament of Power appearances. Both of them sporting spiffy new attires like they went and hit up H&M real quick before the tournament and did some retail therapy. Or to rob the spot one last time like the good old days before the world potentially ended. Now for the most part, both of these were actually pretty decent figures, despite still being available through some online retailers here in 2024. Both of them feature highly accurate sculpts and paint jobs, making them look like they were actually 3D printed right out of the anime. Now of course, they wouldn't offer much to fans looking for classic nostalgia from the Android saga, but both at least came with accessories. Not as many as the OGs, mind you, but at least the hand selection included a decent amount, enough for these figures to get quite a bit of posability. Moving right along, like any good family function, you can't forget the in-laws, which brings us to Android 17's Krillin, Earth's Strongest Man. Anybody else feel like Tamashi drew inspiration from the Avengers for this figure's title? This figure was long awaited because it marked a sorely overdue release of Krillin on an updated body sculpt, and for the first time he'd be readily available since his 1.0 counterparts released many moons ago. As far as anime accuracy, this figure made its predecessor obsolete. Now based on some trends we've seen in the line, you might have said, well, he's wrong. The 1.0 gave it a destructo disc, so it still has its place in the line. Nope, this guy does too. So GTFO 1.0 Krillin, GTFO. This Krillin got the bag, and I mean literally, he comes with a bag of senzus. And now is it just me, or did none of us actually realize how much of this accessory was actually needed all this time? Mind you, it's attached to the hand, so you might have to get creative. All in all, a spectacular release for such a pint-sized person of a character, and arguably one of the best, if not the best, release in the main line for 2022. Alright, so next up, continuing the Super Wave, was a web exclusive, technically the first of 2022, being Kefla. Not only was she the first figure in a crop top, but she was the result of a fan poll picked the next figure held a few years back. Interesting. While I won't comment on the poll's availability outside of Japan, it's good to know that Tomoshi does listen. Kefla was an interesting release because her sculpt had to be different from Bulma, Launch, or 18's in that she got some abs showing, so the muscle had to be there, while not looking hyper masculine. And I'd say they pulled it off. Kefla included 3 expressions and handsets, folded arms, as well as energy effect parts for her signature attack, which I'm sure has been named in various video games by now. She also included a red type ki blast, which was nice because it's always nice to have color variations outside that of a Golden Super Saiyan aura. As for the look, she got the job done. The only qualms to the figure were its top heaviness and some fragility of the peg parts because they're so small. Nonetheless, an interesting figure which has potential to draw interest to collections if incorporated into the right display. Now as Dragon Ball does, the next release would bring back Frieza once again, almost as if to tell Krillin, you don't get to be reborn without getting popped like a pizza pocket again. Interestingly enough, the last time we saw this figure was 2018, and like a leap year, Frieza seems to pop up every 4 years, so 2026 release, I'm calling you now. But if Super Saiyan Goku is Tamashi's answer to increasing consumerism in the line, then 4th form Frieza is the villain equivalent, so it makes sense. The next figure in 2022 would be the next web exclusive in the form of Zidor. Safe to say, another long-awaited character from the Namek saga collectors have been desiring since the release of Captain Ginyu. Our favorite Durian-based character featured a 7-star Namekian Dragon Ball and came with a total of 7 hands, 3 heads, and a scouter. Now, there were quite mixed opinions on this figure stemming from its web exclusive tiered price tag in relation to the feel and articulation of the figure. As larger figures go in this line, this one was not as posable as some of the other ones. Nonetheless, it still earned a spot on many collectors' shelves and is still available online today for at or close to resale prices. Moving on brings us to the first event exclusive of 2022, being Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan Kaioken Goku. Let's be real, I think a lot of Dragon Ball Super fans were thirsting for this one. And who could blame them? Up to this date, this is the only version of the figure to get this exact transformation with this exact power-up, which requires no customization. Even though this was a New York Comic Con 2021 exclusive, it took until 2022 for most people to be able to get it who didn't go to the actual event itself. What's more is the effect part is in the form of Super Saiyan God Kaioken Aura, and it's unique to this figure. Other than that, the figure featured the higher tiered plastic and paint typical of event exclusive figures, surely one for the books. Alright, so here's the point in the year, Tamashii, we were all waiting for. And that is the batch release of Dragon Ball Super superhero movie figures featuring Goku, Piccolo, Vegeta, and Gohan. Other than these 4 figures being the first to sport the new movie moniker in the titles, there were a few things to remark on here. Overall, these figures featured a very much more matted look in contrast to the saturated color palettes we're used to seeing in the line, which made them look all the more manga resemblant for the most part. Now, as far as Vegeta, this was the first time we see him in that Buu Saga-ish jumpsuit since the release of Majin Vegeta years ago, who, safe to say, did not feature the greatest anime-accurate coloring for the jumpsuit compared to this one. With Piccolo, he returned to his manga yellow arm musculature versus the pink, and we'd get to see adult Gohan in the Piccolo gi as opposed to the Turtle Hermit gi we usually saw him in the past. Now, in a nutshell, these movie releases were arguably the weakest out of the movie releases we have seen in the line to this point, with a lot of collectors having mixed feelings about them, and ultimately feeling like most of the budget probably went into Gohan. Safe to say, Tamashii knew the revenue for this movie's figure lay in the new transformations like Orange Piccolo and Beast Gohan rather than the ordinary forms we saw with these releases. Don't worry though, because the next few releases will put 2022 back on track, because majority of them featured side characters who up to this point left an itch collectors in the line could not scratch without custom figures. And the first of these was the web exclusive Zarbon. Blurring the lines of gender once again, Zarbon featured 2 options for hairstyles that were not related to transformations at all and purely cosmetic. You do you, Zarbon, I guess. Zarbon also featured 5 pairs of hands, 3 faces, and a scouter, as well as the 2-star Namekian in Dragon Ball. Now, interestingly enough, being a web exclusive, the figure was without a doubt well done, featuring an anime-accurate appearance, especially with the pastel color palette, though much like Doria earlier this year, the figure left a little something to be desired for in terms of the paint detail compared to the other web exclusives we have seen in the line thus far. At first glance, some collectors were reminded of Bandai's action figures in the late 1990s and early 2000s because the plastic gave off this hard, unforgiving, unarticulating appearance. Overall though, it represented Zarbon quite well and luckily did not lack in articulation. And would it really be a new year without at least one figure that was arguably purely fan service? I don't think so, and that brings us to the release of another exclusive in the form of Android 21's human appearance. Now that she's canon, and I really just threw that word in there to piss off the trolls because, being a Broly fan, y'all should know I don't care about canon or not, I just love Dragon Ball. Anyway, she holds more relevance as a release and appeal to the general collector's audience. She does feature an energy effect piece at the very least and is totally unique in appearance as a figure. Initially, the release was made available to coincide with the Dragon Ball Games Battle Hour event, but saw a wider release afterwards. The nice thing about Android 21's release was she made a perfect segue into the next release for 2022, First Form, or Imperfect Cell. This was another release that had quite a bit of hype around it, as it was the only Dragon Ball Z villain missing its original form appearance in the line. Now, this version of Cell didn't come with as many effects as Perfect Cell did, but it still featured multiple faces and interchangeable tail parts for your absorption needs. If you ever wanted to create the Pokemon move Giga Drain, now was your chance. His promotional art did feature a rock base, just as we saw with OG Final Form Frieza and Perfect Cell's releases, but unfortunately we didn't get that. Overall, this figure wasn't bad. It wasn't spectacular either, but it hit the spot for the niche of the character. So by now we've reached a point in the year where we've seen Tamashii either heat up or experience a period of ups and downs, but either way, we usually observe a batch of releases which really brings some heat to end off the summer. And for 2022, it was perhaps the first year in a while where we saw a bit of an exception to that trend. With the next pair releases being Kid Gohan and Krillin both donning their battle armor as seen during the Namek Saga, the figures themselves here, it's worth mentioning the controversy surrounding the price tags for these figures, as well as their limited availability due to the fact that they're both web exclusives. Many collectors decided to omit these simply due to them running for a close to $90 USD shipped cost. Despite the figure's great aesthetics and likeness, the limited posability and stability due to the sizing made it questionable. For sub 6-inch figures, both actually did incredible jobs at aesthetically representing their characters in Figuarts form. Each came with a typical interchangeable face and hand parts, as well as the 1 and 3 star Namekian and Dragon Balls for Krillin and Gohan respectively. To the point of there being many variants of the same handful of characters in the line by now, these figures were no exception. It does make you wonder though, when did web exclusives stop featuring the exclusive amount of flawlessness we expected to keep seeing in the line? Fortunately, by the end of summer, it sorta got saved by a character who still to this day has ironically yet to save the world from a major villain, Vegeta, in the form of Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta. With regards to the saving, it was mostly from the perspective of fans eager to see this character grace the line ever since the release of Super Saiyan 4 Goku, rather than the figure actually being a big bang of an awesome figure itself. The figure, in contrast to past releases at this time, fell slightly short, ironically as a result of the 3.0 body mold leaving Vegeta looking as though his pants were turning into some sort of waist-high boots which went all the way up to his thighs. While still not a horrible figure, it left something to be desired for, a common trend for Vegeta figures in the line such as Majin Vegeta and Superhero Vegeta. The figure featured 3 faceplates, 5 pairs of hands, and energy effect parts as well as a tail. The figure was definitely appreciated by fans who were waiting for it and paired perfectly with Super Saiyan 4 Goku, but it is worth noting that there were no major issues with the figure that I'd say made it an outcast. Now, as we approach the holiday season in 2022, we got the gift of 5 exclusives to end off the year. Super Saiyan 2 Goku, Majin Buu, Shenron, Android 16, and Super Saiyan Broly from the Broly movie. It's also interesting to note that Goku received yet another transformation through an exclusive form, which did not receive a regular release in years prior, just like Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken Goku. This batch of event exclusives also offered fans a chance to grab some core characters in case they missed out on them before, such as Android 16, who had not seen a release in nearly a decade. The largest noteworthy thing here is that unlike previous years, it could almost be said that if you were to make the best of 2022 for the line, you'd find that more than half of that list is right here in these event exclusives. Now fortunately, as the months and years would go on, we haven't seen a return to 2022's trend of mediocrity and delusional price tags in the same magnitude, and the line is still going strong. But I think this is the first time in the series where I'm concluding the episode on a curious head-scratching tone. It's almost as if Tamashi suddenly got hit with the news of bigger plans for 2023 and decided to just finish up for 2022 with what they had left to get through it. And seeing what will be coming in 2023, I have a hunch that's a little bit of what happened. So, what did you guys think about 2022 as a whole? Do you agree with the point about the mainline figures compared to the web exclusives? Or do you think it was still a pretty good year? Let me know in the comments below, and until next time, you know what I always say, may the best of your todays be the worst of your tomorrows.